Chapter 50 Transition Day, Updated. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Taking care of the wheat field was Lao Lu's job. It was a great field, dark soil covered in healthy green sprouts. It was the best wheat growth he'd seen in a long time, and the weather was perfect for it. Just picturing it, he could almost see the golden, plump ears swaying in the breeze. The crops weren't for them, and they didn't own the land. The Lord owned it all. They just helped him farm it, but in return, he provided all their food. It was a much better deal than when they were fleeing. He even got real meat to eat every couple of days. Before, villagers like him were lucky to get meat once a month. Meat was a real treat back then. The Lord treated them well, and they were happy to work hard for him. Each acre wasn't too much work. He could finish one in half a day. The Lord didn't care what they did in their free time. He still longed for a good piece of land of his own, something solid and secure. As he was leaving the field, he saw the Lord putting away the simple wooden tools and heading home. Everyone in the village only had wooden tools. But he'd heard a blacksmith shop was being built. Would the Lord give them iron tools? That would make farming so much easier. One person could take care of so much more land. Shaking his head, Lao Lu walked to a special room where he stored his tools. It must have been a residence at some point, but now it was a storage shed. A large group of villagers had gathered in the town square. They were wearing the same coarse cloth as the workers. They knew the workers were called affairs officers, and the officers used the same term for themselves. The officers were reading out some decree. They always stood there for a long time to read the news, and he wondered if their legs got tired. Standing far from the crowd, Lao Lu couldn't hear clearly. So, he asked a random villager nearby, "What's going on?" The villager said, "The higher-ups are saying if you want to learn to write or do arithmetic, you should go to the front." Even though the leader had set up a bulletin board, most people couldn't read, so all news relied on the affairs officers reading announcements aloud from a platform in town. Some of the leaders couldn't even write their own names, but regular communication wasn't an issue. The news would just spread by word of mouth. Oh, Lao Lu nodded, so that's why everyone was gathered there. Literacy was usually reserved for the wealthy, and his family could never afford schooling, but if the top performers in arithmetic got the chance to learn reading and writing, Lao Lu felt like he had a shot. There weren't any activities or entertainment in the evenings. But if anything was happening, a large crowd would quickly gather. Ji Lin hadn't really considered this. There was nothing to do for fun and no privacy, so everyone just went to sleep. Many things regarding developing production across the country hadn't been thought through completely. A group of kids led by soldiers pushed their way through the crowd, shouting for everyone to make way so the children could take the test first. These children belonged to the most recent group to join them. On the day they arrived, Lao Lu had noticed the long line of them escorted by gray-clothed soldiers. They looked just like the refugees who had come before. People adapted quickly. They'd adjusted to life in the leader's group within a few days. The older workers were already familiar with them. They were all refugees, after all, and no one was in a position to look down on anyone. In the leader's group, they were all in the same boat. Children usually helped out in the kitchen, as he recalled, and got special treatment when it came to food. They were able to eat meat every day. Looking at these lively children, it seemed the leader had a lot more work to do. The soldiers must have brought them after finishing their own work to do, arithmetic. Lao Lu knew some arithmetic himself. His parents had spent what little money they had to send him to a tutor for a year, hoping he could learn enough to become an accountant, but he never became one. His father got sick, and he had to go home early to take care of the family. He'd carry water home from the river, a 5-mile walk. Then Xiao Lu married Lao Lu, and after his father recovered, the war struck. Some fled, and some scattered. Eventually, he came here with the village chief. He snuck in along the edge of the children's group, wanting to see what was going on. There were 4 lines set up in a semicircle. All the managers were there. The original village chief was there, as well as the leader of the team that fled, and the new ones were working together. Because of their experience, they were assigned to teach the new refugees how to farm. First, they were writing down the names of everyone in line, then asking and answering questions until they got one wrong, then writing down the number of questions they got right on a piece of paper. If you couldn't answer in 5 seconds, it was considered a mistake. Then, next person up, this was how they filtered out the talented ones. He looked around, but the Lord wasn't there. Usually, the Lord was at events like this. Maybe he was sick. He hoped the Lord got well soon. Hey, move along, but without realizing it, he'd squeeze to the front of the line, blending in with the crowd. The people behind him urged him to move forward and stop holding up the line. Moving forward, he saw the kids had already started the test under the watch of the soldiers. No one was complaining. This was the Lord's decision. There's a person ahead, someone said from the back. There was nothing left to do. Lao Lu walked up to one of the proctors and started answering arithmetic questions. He even did it conversationally. But then he noticed that the person next to him was a child. The village chief had been replaced by another affairs officer, a gentle guy named Chong Shan. He remembered clearly that if there was anything he needed, he could contact him. Chong Shan was the one who arranged his work. Another officer, Chong Heng, would bring back a lot of meat every day. He sometimes saw him standing in front of the team carrying a wolf back. Remember this kid's name. He passed, Chong Shan said, looking pleased. No more questions were needed. Lao Lu had even been asked a quadratic equation, and the kid responded quickly. No matter how difficult the question, Zhongshan would figure it out himself. There was no need for those questions that Ji Lin had given him. All 12 children were able to pass the test questions that Ji Lina wrote down overnight. They were all very smart. Zhongshan looked at the long line and sighed, then his eyes fell on the child's neck. There was a very faint blue-white scent lingering there, like a stream that disappeared as soon as you blew on it. Chapter 51 Salt Field. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Standing at the water's edge, the waves crashed against the dark, muddy shore, tinged with brownish yellow. Fishing boats are like second-era buildings, easily traded for a fisherman's blueprint, but after a professional survey, there aren't any fishermen in the territory. Plus, the main focus isn't on developing the sea. The land resources are better suited to our current needs. The ocean is dangerous but resource-rich. This coastline isn't your typical beach with soft sand and palm trees. It's a gently sloping mudflat made of silt and sediment. Salt marsh plants, mostly low-lying grasses, dominate the expansive coast. Though small, they stubbornly thrive, forming the heart of a unique ecosystem. Not far from the salt marsh, white seabirds take flight and land. I don't know their names, but their plump bodies definitely pique my appetite. They'd probably taste good roasted. This isn't a world bound by environmental protection laws. I want to roast those birds. The river flows through the floodplain and empties into the sea along this long coast. Because the territory is outside the system's protection, the landscape naturally evolves. The floodplain I actually control is much larger than what's mapped. It fans out eastward from the territory to the coast, and the coast, the endless coastline stretches as far as the eye can see. Maybe I'll build a dock someday, and countless merchant ships will crowd this coast, transforming it to suit human needs. A seabird landed nearby on the grass, its plump body clearly visible. With a thought, I channeled a wisp of pale blue energy into a sword shape, barely an inch across. It's so weak. Direct use is incredibly inefficient. It would drain all my energy just to hold its form in the air. That's why civilizations develop magic and runes, to maximize energy usage in specific ways. Efficient energy use is fundamental to all civilizations. The seabird, pecking at the mud, shook its wings, still searching for shellfish hidden beneath the surface, and ignored me standing nearby. A crossbow bolt pinned it to the ground. That works. I lowered the crossbow. There are plenty of these light crossbows stored in the armory. Since the militia guards don't have any training drills these days, I just grabbed a crossbow and 5 bolts on my way out. I didn't bring any guards. The monsters in the area have been cleared out. The crossbow is just for hunting. I focused on the tiny white crystals on the salt flats. The muddy coast is flat, and the large mud flats near the sea are ideal for drawing in seawater and preventing brine seepage. It's a perfect location for a salt farm. With plenty of sunlight, we can evaporate the water and produce tons of white sea salt. Famous salt farms like Tonggu and Subei are located in similar muddy coastal areas. Today's goal is to find a flat area large enough to accommodate the salt farm I plan to buy. Salt farm blueprints are rare, but they're only useful for lords with salt lakes or coastal territories. For others, they're worthless. That means they're relatively cheap. I should be able to snag one for the equivalent of 40 to 50 gold in rice. A typical rare blueprint costs around an acre of gold mine, salt farm, a 5-acre salt farm. Import saltwater, uses sunlight to evaporate water, slowly precipitating salt. 80 stone, 40 wood, construction time, 1 day, snow white salt, makes delicious food. With the system's help, I'm basically a mobile construction vehicle. Once I find a suitable spot, I just drop it down, wait for the materials to arrive, and construction starts automatically. After it's built, we can start production. After finding a big enough area, I took a picture of 10 salt farms lined up. I don't have to worry about crushing the wildlife. That problem has been solved at the root. I collected 10 plump seabirds and over 50 eggs of various types. I had too many eggs to carry. The salt farm's production rate depends on the water's salt content. These huge farms rely on solar evaporation, so it will take about a week for the salt to crystallize. The salt quality won't be top-notch. Don't expect gourmet quality from simple filtered sea salt. As long as it's not too bitter, it'll be fine for everyday use in the territory. The upside is that it requires minimal labor. To improve the salt quality, we'll need to use the research stations to refine the process. I tasted a bit of the soil. It was salty, with a slight bitter tang of brine. So salty. Holding the seabird, I wondered if we could breed them in the territory as a food source. If they get this fat, they'd be quite tasty. Whether or not it can be raised, he can have an extra meal tonight. The day before I left, I whipped up some elementary school-level test questions overnight and gave them to Chongshan, telling him to just wing it. So the hard-working administrator and a general are now giving arithmetic tests to the 18 residents of the territory. The coast is rich in biological resources, some large herbs, and resources in the sea. I spotted a large reef, but I can't explore it without a boat. The cold wind brushed my face as I walked along the mudflat, doing nothing, listening to the waves, and breathing in the ocean air. It's a great feeling. It would be even better with a cute girl by my side. I'm still a little envious of the elves' opening. The system's voice rang in my ears, and a light display appeared before me, relaying the cold information to the Lord. The practice battlefield will open in 60 standard days. Please prepare accordingly. Based on your level, you will be deployed to the battlefield with lords of similar combat power. Deployment is mandatory, and there is no limit to the number of people you can bring. You can acquire various resources in the practice battlefield to facilitate territorial development and accumulate military experience. Please note that the time ratio between the practice battlefield and the real world is 10 to 1. All individuals brought into the battlefield will remain there until the exercise concludes. Please carefully allocate your territory's production capacity. During the practice battlefield exercise, enemy attacks will be suspended, and the hostility of enemies around the territory will be greatly reduced. The mission book cannot be activated 20 days prior to the start of the practice battlefield. Please keep track of the timing. There will be no casualties in the practice battlefield. The system guarantees that no physical, psychological, spiritual, or energy trauma will persist. Feel free to fight without reservation. Chapter 52 Exercise Battlefield. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When he closed the notification, the Lord Forum just exploded. Posts flew by so fast, nothing stayed on his screen for even a fraction of a second. So there's a practice battlefield, which means there's a real one, right? Yeah, probably, but nobody's ready for that yet. He filtered the feed to show only posts from people he followed. Suddenly, the chaos cleared, leaving just a handful of posts. One near the top asked, "Just a thought, but, if the announcement calls this a practice battlefield, does that mean there's a non-practice battlefield coming?" Others chimed in, "If nobody dies in the practice battlefield, and safety's such a big deal, are they gonna throw us into a real fight later?" Below that, lords were already flexing, itching for a fight. After grinding through PvE for so long, they were pumped for their first taste of PvP, or maybe even PvPvPvPvPvPvP. Don't scare me like that. I wanna take my elf team in there and wreck some faces. Same here. But how do we get resources? Maybe we don't have to worry about that yet, right? My dragon squad's ready to burninate. I'm gonna send you all straight to hell. All those baths I gave Em are finally gonna pay off. Forced participation. My orc bros. Well, there's a lot of them, but they're kinda lazy. Lin knew the guy was right. He wasn't safe. Nobody capable was, especially not in the real battlefield to come. This exercise would probably last a while. But he wasn't in the top tier in his last life, so he didn't know how the system decided who to throw in. The battlefield with actual casualties wouldn't show up until much later. For now, they were still in a protected development phase. It was a golden age. There would be some skirmishes, but nothing like the trials his expedition team would face down the road. Someone posted, I checked with the system, and it's staying silent. But knowing it, that confirms my guess. It only clams up when key rules are involved, and it only answers with a yes or no when you test those rules. I'm betting on no. Good luck, everyone. The poster's message ended there. Lin hovered his finger over the screen, wanting to add specific details about the inside of the exercise battlefield, but spilling that info would be a huge disadvantage. He didn't want to attract attention, not just from other players, but from the system itself. It was like a ghost, floating around, with no one knowing what it was planning. He silently closed the forum. If the farming lords used their plentiful resources to build up their territory, the military-focused lords could use the exercise battlefield to quickly grab resources and catch up. After all, civilization wasn't just agriculture. Civilizations constantly fighting over limited resources would use the exercise to get what they needed. It condensed the self-destructive infighting into a relatively safe arena. If you won a fight, you'd get 10% of the resources from the target's territory buildings, plus everything in their storage. The exchange rate went like this: 10% of opponent's resources, X, number of enemies killed, / total number of enemies, 5% of your resources, X, your losses, / your troop count. The exercise battlefield meant nobody could get away with not building an army. But every exercise also meant a massive drain on resources. If you played it right, you could make up for some of your losses. Since nobody lost territory or buildings, the resource drain wasn't fatal to the farming lords. But in the first exercise, plenty of lords who weren't ready for war got wrecked. By the second exercise, thanks to the forum, some of those farming lords had figured out a defense: dig in, build towers, use massive fortifications to hold off the attackers, then just huddle in their bunkers until the timer ran out. So you had the military-focused lords, and the fortification lords. Two distinct battle strategies emerged and the war was on. These two main ideas spun off into countless tactics and spread across the battlefield. Spear and shield, the same struggle would continue for years. He still had 60 days to build up his territory and avoid getting looted. The exercise battlefield. He couldn't even remember when it started in his last life. He set the highest priority on the engineering college and research station. Musketeers alone wouldn't cut it in the exercise battlefield. He needed bigger guns. Super-era research was the key. He was half fortification faction himself. Besides the PvP, he could also pick up tasks at various points on the map. It wasn't as fast as raiding other lords, but there was a chance to find hero units and special blueprints, and if nobody bothered him, he could get a decent amount of resources just by killing monsters and doing quests. At the start of each exercise, the system would give you some guidance and temporary structures. Once you'd completed enough quests or killed enough targets, you could just leave the battlefield. Once the colonial era opened up, the colonial system would be upgraded to the exercise battlefield. You have 2 unread messages. The system chime broke his train of thought. An unknown contact sent you a message. Please check it. According to regulations, do not disclose any information about this situation. Violation will result in a 20% deduction from your territory's resource reserve limit. Unknown contact. That wasn't an option in the friend interface. It always showed the Lord's chosen nickname. If that name was taken, it showed the Lord's real name. If that was taken, Then it added a 1234 at the end. He had never seen this before. He noticed Musi Shancher had sent him a message too. He was probably desperate for help. But right now, Ji Lin was fixated on the two messages from this unknown contact. He clicked, and two envelope icons appeared in front of him. Chapter 53 Letter and Blacksmith Shop. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ji Lin's personal greeting. I don't know what to say except thank you. I enjoyed our chat. Regarding the work I'm doing, I can't tell you about it, but it does allow me to help you in some ways. I also got you something else. Hope you like it. That's all I can say. If you were a higher level, maybe I could share more. Yours faithfully, Sonoda. Is this what the system calls compensation? Will provide with periodic assistance. Still, is really curious about the characteristics of these two. A gift from you guys, huh? Then, the other one reads, Ji Lin's personal greeting. Long time no see. If my memory serves me right, it's been decades since we last spoke. I don't know how time flows in your realm. I've missed you, and I'm very happy to communicate with you again. My request to meet you directly was denied. I've also prepared some gifts for you. This is the most I'm allowed to do. I can't say any more. Looking forward to our next meeting. Nah. Love, Jean. 2 notes landed in S hand. Sonoda's handwriting was as even as a printed font, while Jean's was graceful and elegant. You can't step into the same river twice. Star. Seems to have stepped into a knowledge river, and is this Jean's unique local expression? I remember that in a game I played, letter writers often added little titles to their names. So, is Jean trying to say that she sees herself as home? How cute. Ji Lin stopped thinking. Decades have passed for them, but she's only been out of the vice for a little over a decade. She can't tell her anything, or she'll want to kill the system, and herself. There's no reply option. Both letters are one-way. Knowledge technology has been added to your item list, unlocking access to a higher era. Upon completion of the engineering college, you will receive teacher support, now upgraded to the support of a scientific research director/dean. Forgives half of the system. At least it has some decency. If such a massive academy were built in a player's territory in the old days, it would cost a fortune to recruit a director from the tavern or replace them with a level affairs officer. Once a college has a dean, it can start recruiting students from outside and earning money from the native civilization. In previous lives, academic cities were always a popular choice among lords. They provide jobs, generate gold, produce scientific research, and offer extensive talent training, technological advancements, and comprehensive bonuses. But an engineering college built amidst a cluster of wooden huts is as strange as a primitive dude wielding an AK-47. Territory activities also need improvement. The level of territory activities should be enhanced. While the current 100% tax rate mode is convenient, production capacity remains low, and stability is capped. There's still much to do. After bringing the game back to the territory, the long team still seemed to have diminished in the slightest. Zhongshan handled the entire process, conducting math tests on the villagers alongside others. It was hard work to keep them going for 2 days straight. The next day, visited the newly built blacksmith shop in the territory. Before, the blacksmith shop couldn't forge. It currently has a musketeer barrel. It is seriously unqualified. 3 shots exploded the chamber. Compared with hydrogen metallurgy, handmade metal is lagging behind. The quality and output are completely incomparable. This is not surprising. Ordinary gun barrels can't withstand the explosive force of crystal or powder. The only way to make them withstand it is to make the barrel walls super thick to prevent breakage, just like modern muskets. This means that this batch of high-era muskets can't be mass-produced yet due to material quality. She had previously shown these crystal ores to the blacksmiths, asking if they had any ideas for their use. People tended to stay away from this translucent blue crystal that resembled quartz ore. They seemed to think it was an expensive metal, but Ji Lin couldn't explain the principles of crystal minerals to them. It was too hard to teach a group who barely knew the chemical formula for hydrogen combustion. Honestly, she said, the quality of the barrels we're producing is better than before. Take a look and see if you've made any progress. You mean, use this stuff directly as fuel? Ji Lin's face was a mask of surprise as she looked at the nervous, hesitant blacksmiths. No, I'm not blaming you at all. Her thinking had been limited by the times. She had only considered hydrogen metallurgy, forgetting that crystal ores were used as high-energy fuel for steam engines in steam and steel games. As fuel, they possess extremely high heat. If it's fuel, why not just use it as fuel? Use it to make fire. The blacksmiths were astonished by this discovery. Who figured this out? A blacksmith hesitantly stepped forward from the group. He wore a somewhat tattered blacksmith's robe that wasn't considered part of the territorial uniform. Yes, Lord, I thought it looked like a coal mine, with the coal all shiny and glittering. We found that if we light it, it slowly starts to burn, and then the volume decreases. A piece as big as a fist can burn for half an hour. Ji Lin nodded, patting him on the shoulder. Okay, you're our leader now. I have high hopes for you. Promote this method. You need to keep studying how to burn this stuff more safely and consistently. The blacksmith's face showed a surprised look through his panic. He'd thought he was going to be punished for this, but it seems the Lord is happy. In Ji Lin's sight, a new attribute floated above the blacksmith shop: crystal or fuel, blacksmith shop efficiency plus 35%, waste rate -20%, extremely high calorific value fuel increases the temperature in the furnace, can heat quickly, and make the metal melt faster. A 35% efficiency bonus, that's huge, nice. High-end energy often has the simplest applications, using water and sunlight to grow crystal or directly replaces the carbon cave that should produce coal in this era, saving a lot of resources and manpower, killing two birds with one stone, with the blacksmith shop's 35% efficiency increase. 3 of her own blacksmith shops are almost equivalent to 4 others. Chapter 54 Security and Management. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The blacksmith shop is humming along, which is great. He's meeting his own needs and can even spare some steel for Li Yan. In exchange, he gets plenty of iron ore and gold. Ji Lin, though, is still a bit behind, only promising Li Yan some sugarcane. Li Yan's already sitting pretty with over 1,500 units of iron ore and gold. The Traians. They're all about plants. The way they control plant growth is amazing. They can even grow buildings without needing extra materials, and speed up food and wood production for construction. Once you have an ancient tree, you can develop a special Traiant spell tree, improving both your spells and plants. It's pretty low pressure, but the downside is development is slower. They're not competitive, don't really want much. He headed back to the town center, but before he could even take a seat, a new problem landed in his lap. He'd been so focused on production that he'd neglected management, and now it was catching up to him. Specifically, territory security. Security issues drag down the territory's stability. Stability, in turn, affects how much of a production bonus the territory gets. A stable city means smoother resource flow, less population turnover, and lower losses. Basically, a peaceful city is a productive city. A high stability bonus can boost total production by up to 25%. The more stable things are, the more efficient production becomes. With a small population, you don't have to worry about security as much. But if it develops in a nomadic style, the maximum stability will be lower than that of a normal territorial population. Lord, you gotta help me. A lord knelt before him. Anyone who wants to talk to him just knocks on the door. This was the 5th lord who came to him for justice, all complaining about missing stuff. They're convinced their roommates swiped their belongings and are looking to their lord to sort it out. In their eyes, the lord is like a god who takes care of everything. Not many of Li Erlang's original group had much, but most of the pioneers who came with Wu Bai had their own property or valuables. Public housing, no private space. That's a recipe for conflict. Once resources allow, he'll get everyone their own place, or at least their own room, but until then, time to put together a guard team. It's amazing the town of 1,800 went this long without guards and didn't have a bigger problem. He remembered those games. Even with a tiny population, you still needed a police force to keep the peace. Chanhun will be the captain of the city guard. His experience will be invaluable in setting up a versatile guard team to maintain order and settle disputes. Ji Lin himself has no management experience, and whatever worked for managing rat people definitely won't work for humans, definitely, he's being careful, maybe even a little too nice and gentle, maintaining security for almost 2,000 people. The territory's population is pretty stable, but there will be problems later on such as criminal issues. The guards need to handle civil disputes, miscellaneous issues, and emergencies like fires. No need for a huge force. If everyone runs to him with every problem, things will grind to a halt. He can manage it now with 1,800 people, but what about 10,000 or 100,000? Division of labor is the key to long-term stability. There's only so much one person can handle. The management system suited for a population will determine the population's future direction and its true upper limit. The system adapts to the environment, not the other way around. Back in the day, monarchs who tried to micromanage everything either had a natural gift for it or died young. Ji Lin figures he's neither. He decided on a team of 20 guards and patrols, a ratio of roughly 1/1000 or 10/1000 of the total population. His first thought was the best disciplined team, the musketeers. But they're busy hunting and cleaning, so pulling them into guard duty isn't ideal. The light crossbow militia. They're just ordinary soldiers called up temporarily. They're only 2 days ahead in military skills and training, and 2 days ahead in physical sense. The militia is now farming. For a quick deployment, they've had minimal training, no real organization, and no discipline. They might have passion when fighting monsters, but they might not have the perseverance to strictly execute after becoming guards, so, he has to choose from the militias. 1 out of 10, he grabbed a piece of paper and started jotting down his thoughts. The Lord, still lost in thought, caught the kneeling Lord's eye again. "What's your name? You didn't kneel the first time you saw me." He took notes on the Lord's questions for half an hour, then told him to go home and wait for an answer. He's banned kneeling and worship in the territory, but these things take time. The papermaking workshop is in the works. The importance of paper for spreading knowledge can't be overstated. The first private school class is preparing to provide basic writing and math skills to 300 people at a time. Once they're done, the papermaking workshop will be ready to go. The paper mill wasn't built earlier because literacy was too low, no one could read. With the second era, there are buildings and paper mills. Although the system provides a lot of paper, that paper is given to the lords for initial management to meet unexpected needs. He'll need bulletin boards and newspapers down the line. The construction private school will provide some basic teaching materials. If the private school does not provide these teaching materials, he and several affairs officers may not be able to sleep well for several days. The private school can only fit 10 people. They took out the tables and chairs and everyone sitting on the floor. If he overloads the capacity by 1 or 2 people, would it be a problem? He also checked the construction site and saw that the teaching progress of the corresponding tasks will be displayed on the top of the building. It takes about 2 months for the private school to complete the teaching tasks with teachers, one group every 2 months. It'll take 12 months to teach basic writing and arithmetic to all 1,800 people. After the first batch is chosen, education can begin, and they can start learning to read and write. He wants to help them understand the world. With knowledge, he can develop their skills. Blacksmiths, tailors, merchants, doctors, teachers, chefs, not just farmers. No one works building, only building. Things in the territory are finally moving in a direction he understands. The machine called society is slowly starting up, the gears are meshing, and things are moving forward. Chapter 55-5/1000. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhongshan pushed the door open. "Sir, the arithmetic screening is done." Ji Lin nodded, understanding, and handed him the rules he'd written for establishing the guard team. "Thanks for your hard work, Zhongshan. Give this to Changheng. He can use it to select guards from the 200 militiamen. We need them to maintain law and order in the territory." Zhongshan took the paper, glanced at it, folded it, and tucked it into his clothes. Ji Lin hadn't written much, but it covered the guards' organizational discipline: no violence, no abuse of power, meet the residents' needs, and help residents in trouble. Basically, Ji Lin was modeling them after a police force. He didn't just want a group of bruisers, he wanted a comprehensive social coordination organization. The guards, police, and the army would be separate departments. Changheng would continue to manage the army, while Zhongshan would directly manage the guards. Internal and external departments needed different training, countermeasures, weapons, and equipment. Just like we did in Sita City, Ji Lin said, they were familiar with this kind of cooperation, and he trusted Zhongshan to handle it well. Administrative experience in the dungeon translated well, productivity limited them, but they do their best with the rest. The private school opens tomorrow. Take it easy for a while once you're done with this. Ji Lin stretched and sighed. Including their time in the dungeon, these two heroic units had been working non-stop for over 150 days, a ridiculously long stretch. He could see the dark circles under their eyes. Doing that kind of high-intensity work would have him flat on his back. They needed a break, or even Iron Men would crack. Sir, there's something you might find interesting. Zhongshan waited for Ji Lin to finish and then gestured towards the door. Ji Lin saw a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing there, cautious and timid, leaning on the doorframe like he needed it to hold him up. Called forward, he hesitated, then walked in with small steps. Show the sir. Show what? Ji Lin focused on the boy. His face was flushed. He held his palm out to Ji Lin, flat, a faint blue, almost white, wisp of air rose from his palm, condensing into a tiny ball, about the size of a mung bean, very weak, like a spark. How many are there? Ji Lin asked Zhongshan, trying to keep his voice steady. He stopped the child from trying to squeeze out more of the light white and blue breath. He knew from experience that you got what you got, forcing it wouldn't produce any more, but he had to ask. 10. 8 children and 2 adults. Zhongshan placed a list on the table in front of Ji Lin with 10 names, 10 lucky people who had awakened their Siren potential early. Because of the arithmetic test, these things appear and surround us when we think. It's very faint, sometimes barely visible. I'm not sure if all 10 are potential Sphirot users. The awakening rate seems much higher in children than adults. Zhongshan explained. They wouldn't have noticed the changes in their bodies if I hadn't discovered it. None of the 10 knew anything was different. They were unaware of the Sphirot's existence, but that energy source was already strengthening their abilities. Thinking, physical fitness, agility, and thinking catalyzed the energy's operation. If it wasn't recognized and controlled, it would naturally overflow and surround the awakened person, in observable form. Ji Lin nodded. This was the first time he was taking this approach. From now on, everyone would have to do math problems regularly to screen for these gifted individuals, then send them to the engineering college for compulsory study. Magic guides were coming, steam troopers and steam spiders too. If he ordered in advance, mechanized troops would have to rely on runes to cheat and trade time for quality. Ji Lin nodded slowly and asked Zhongshan to continue. He's very smart. He ranked first in the arithmetic test and showed extraordinary talent. His performance was only in the top third. No one else in the top 50 has awakened source energy potential. We still need to observe the impact of source energy potential. Ji Lin expected the system to jump in with new item prompts, but it didn't. Then Zhongshan said what he needed. I hope I can teach him personally. I need a deputy. This was the first time Zhongshan had asked for anything for himself. Ji Lin agreed immediately. There were few teachers in the territory, and Zhongshan's personal experience was invaluable. One-on-one guidance was much faster than learning from scratch in a class. The child could learn steam-age technology directly from his affairs officer. Since his own affairs officer thought he had extraordinary talent, he might as well let Zhongshan give it a shot. No harm in trying. By the time the students arrived, their own engineering academy would almost be complete, a perfect connection. After they left, Ji Lin sat in his office, thinking. He was confused. At least 10 people in the territory had awakened psychic potential. 10 out of 1,800, that was roughly 5/1000. 50 out of 10,000, very low. He vaguely remembered the awakening rate for human magic and runes was also 1% at the primary level, with the characteristics eventually awakening in 100% of the population. Zhongshan also said the statistics weren't complete, so the actual proportion should be higher. He picked up his cup, filled with turbid green juice. Fine particles floated in it. It wasn't dirty, it was a privilege of being the Lord. Sugarcane juice, sweet, delicious, full of sugar, refreshing, and good for coughs and lung deficiency, clearing heat and detoxifying. Very sweet, and tasted even better cold. Sugarcane juice was popular among the heroic units. Once he got the plantation blueprint, sugarcane would be mass-produced. Enough sugar could really boost morale. The territory wasn't living the free sugar life yet, but free salt wasn't far off. Chapter 56 Neighborhood Watch and Housing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alright, everyone, snap to it. Chongheng yelled, and the Lai Ri militia moved as one. They've got some fire in them, Chongshan said, nodding in approval. They weren't Vika musketeer level yet, but good enough for now. He'd come with news for Chongheng. Yeah, they're always busting their butts, trying to make the cut for the guard, Chongheng said, adjusting his hat, watching the militiamen sweating under the sun as they stood at attention. They'd expected some brutal physical trials, ready to win through sheer strength. They were stuck in the old ways of thinking, picturing the guards as just big, tough guys, but there was no strength competition. Chongheng only made them stand. That was it, stand for half the day, take an hour for lunch, then back to standing. If you couldn't hack it, they'd patch you up, but you were out of the running for a guard spot. If you wanted to quit, that was fine too. You'd even get a chunk of meat for your trouble. He was putting 100 guys through this full time. 200 were former crossbow militia, and the other 100 were new recruits. Only 10 would actually make the cut, under the blazing sun, stripping away the weak, keeping only the strong. So, what's the Lord planning for the guard? Still calling them guards, that even though Chongshan and Chongheng were talking, the guys in formation weren't about to slack off. It wasn't just Chongheng's rank. He was right there with them, standing alongside them, outlasting them all. Before roll call, he'd be there, waiting, like a stone wall. He stood there until sunset. He'd only move if someone went down, and then he'd personally escort the guy to the medic. The Lord was serious about this guard selection. It was important. The initial team would set the tone for the whole operation. Ji Lin was willing to foot the bill for up to 100 guys to train full-time for a week. Chongheng held up a piece of paper for Chongshan to see. Scrawled on it were 3 words. Neighborhood Watch. We went back and forth, but that's what we landed on. United, keeping the peace. Yeah, that's a good name, Chongheng said. How many are still in training? It's already started, right? Chongshan scanned the lines of militia. When they saw him looking, they snapped to attention, tighter than drum skins. Not sure exactly, but... Chongheng bellowed, all right, people, give me a head count. Sir. Sir. The militiamen shouted back as one, then rattled off their numbers. 8 from row 5, sir. 30 from row 1, sir. 29 from row 1, sir. 30 from row 2, sir. 30 from row 2, sir. 30 from row 2, sir. Chongheng nodded, satisfied, and turned to Chongshan. 127. The training had already weeded out over half, and there was more to come. Only 10 would make it. The rest would be folded into the regular militia. But just making it this far meant they had something. They could bolster the main forces for the upcoming war games. How's the Lord planning the patrols? We can't have them squatting in houses all day, Chongheng said with a grin. He likes to convert those houses into something else. Not that you could blame Ji Lin. Those houses were big, and the beds made handy storage. The Lord wants them using the watchtowers. 5 guys per tower. 2 towers in each of the main districts, and 20 spread between the towns. They can crash in the houses for now. The watchtowers gave them a good view of the territory. From those 8-story towers, the guards could keep an eye on everything, patrolling on a set schedule. That'd make the neighborhood watch run like clockwork. They were building the framework, one step at a time. Some say that going from commodity to currency is a risky leap, making policy is the same. Going from planning to actually putting it into action is a gamble. If it fails, it's not just the commodity that gets wrecked, but the owner too. How's the schoolhouse coming along? Is it open yet? Chongshan shook his head. It's okay, nothing special. I've asked the Lord to build a paper mill. Without paper, they're stuck reading off the chalkboard. It's not the best way to learn. Plus they need pens and ink, 100 people crammed into one room, trying to hear the teacher over the din. They're working hard, but they can't practice enough. They have to scrawl on the dirt with sticks after class to make it stick, but they're eager to learn. Seeing that enthusiasm, Chongshan couldn't help but feel good. Where's Wu Bai? Isn't he with you? Chongheng hadn't seen Wu Bai, who was usually glued to Chongshan's side. He's settling in quick. Today, he's leading a crew to check out the salt flats and reroute some water to build new salt ponds. He's also planning the road paving. We need to build 2 stone roads to the different areas to get more traffic flowing. With a proper road, they could use carts and trucks. Ji Lin had just unlocked that tech from the blacksmith. The blacksmith wasn't as fancy as the research station or the academy, but it could still crank out some basic tech stuff for fighting, defense, and basic needs. They could also build simple machines, like wheelbarrows and wagons. Of course, for the heavy stuff, like stone cannons and trebuchets, they'd need a siege factory. The territory was fast-tracking itself to a more advanced era. People weren't just relying on their own 2 hands anymore. Simple tools like wheelbarrows were popping up everywhere. Ji Lin decided to focus on improving everyday life first. If he went straight for something big like the engineering college, it would strain the system too much. Researching new tech wasn't cheap. He had a good stockpile of resources, but development couldn't lag behind. He had a plan: upgrading primary residence to house. That was a blueprint he'd just bought. Cost more than a house in the Empire era, but could house 10 people. Each person got their own room, which was way more comfortable. Plus, each house had its own bathroom, so no more crowded bathhouses. Each house took 20 stone and 60 wood, but it was worth it. He'd learned this the hard way in his past life. He knew what to look for. Replacing all the houses for 1,800 people would take 3,600 stone and 10,080 wood. That was half the cost of the engineering college, and 1,800 wasn't his limit. Those resources would disappear fast once more people started showing up. Of course, this wasn't a free handout. He planned to use the new houses as a reward for hard work, a way to boost production. Chapter 57: Those who work hard will be rewarded. Third update. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Another month flew by. The territory weathered 2 enemy attacks. Nothing special there. The controlled zones don't trigger enemy spawns, so the orcs and undead that trickled in from elsewhere were easily picked off by the musketeers in the watchtowers. Each wave earned him a piece of equipment and a blueprint. The watchtower's long range and wide field of vision made short work of the invaders. Living tree armor. Epic. Plus 40 armor, 0.5% regeneration. Restores 0.5% health per minute, plus 25% fire damage. Biological unit only. Living armor forged with forest spirit. Fire is its weakness. The plus 40 armor is just a bonus. The real power is the 0.5% regeneration. It's not much of a boost if the unit has low health. In normal combat, 40 armor points would be better, but on a giant biological unit, it's a game changer. That 0.5% regeneration keeps the giant going, allowing it to be the centerpiece of his army in the early to mid-game. Unfortunately, the living tree armor isn't much use to him. As a lord who relies on swarm tactics, he doesn't need it. This is tailor-made for giant biological units. He knows someone who'll have those units someday, and he owes him a favor. Li Yan may not seem to care, but he's turned into a slowpoke after hanging out with the tree people for so long. Word is, he started his own botanical garden. He built a trading post and even got lucky enough to find a tree-person village to trade with. His life is way better than Ji Lin's. After snagging the living tree armor, he thanked Ji Lin profusely and boasted about how his hero unit was transforming into a tree under the world tree's influence. The difference between people, huh? The blueprint he got was exactly what he needed, a plantation blueprint. He can finally start growing sugarcane. Plantation. Can cultivate the following crops. that he's already got a bunch of sugarcane roots ready to go on both sides of the river. He told his people to plant them. Sugarcane needs a lot of water. The swamp has plenty, but it's too hard for people to work in, so he'll look elsewhere. The first 400 acres of wheat have been harvested. A sea breeze swept across the golden fields, where the heavy heads of wheat swayed in the wind. Everyone in the territory stopped what they were doing to help with the harvest. It still felt like spring, and the weather was perfect. The wheat straw won't go to waste. It's loaded onto carts and taken to new farming areas. The rice straw is burned in the fields and plowed into the soil as fertilizer. After clearing the land, they can plant another crop. After threshing, the wheat is sent to the mill to make flour. Now the territory can produce its own bread and other staples. He's never lived by the sea, but he's heard the temperature stays pretty steady year-round. That's great for plants, since it means he can farm all year. The food supply will be much more reliable. On the other hand, if the temperature swings a lot between day and night, like in Xinjiang, it's easier for plants to store up sugar, and the fruits and vegetables taste way better. So, there are advantages either way. Once the wheat is in, he'll move most of the farms to the floodplain next to the river, where irrigation is easy. The area around the town center will become a residential zone, and the research facilities will move into the center of town, making space for the engineering college to expand. Even though the two town centers are only 3 miles apart as the crow flies, the blacksmiths and carpenters are still working overtime to build wheelbarrows and carts. They don't have any domesticated animals yet, so it's all manpower for now. With the spring harvest done, Lin announced the list of the first people to get private houses. Top performers get houses in the new development. The busy farming season was the key factor in judging performance. Those who didn't make the cut will have to wait for the next batch of houses and another round of evaluations. But the Lord promised everyone will eventually have a new house and a better life. The system recognized the policy and awarded a bonus. New life hope, work efficiency plus 25%. That's as good as the bonus you get when stability is maxed out. Lao Lu watched the Lord stand on the new wooden platform and call out the names, one by one. The Lord and the foreman had personally picked the names based on their observations. The winners walked to the platform and stood in a row, chests puffed out. They looked at the new 2-story wooden and stone houses not far from the town center. The houses were beautiful, with wood frames and stone walls. He'd never seen anything like them back home. He'd never even lived in a stone house. The Lord said they were private houses, but they were more like inns, with rooms upstairs and downstairs. Lu Yensheng, Building 1007, Room 201. Old Lu heard his name. The others looked at him, some with envy, but most with a sense of, yeah, that figures. His hard work had paid off. He was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, a house of his own. He still wanted his own farmland. He stepped up to the Lord, looking at his kind smile. Lord, I'm probably out of line, but I was hoping for a piece of farmland. Old Lu took the slip of paper Lin offered, with his name and room number written on it. His longing for land made him ask, hesitantly and softly, if he bothered the Lord with this kind of request on a normal day. Farmland. Of course. Farmland will be included in future rewards. Lin thought for a moment, then nodded with a smile. He was wondering how to keep his people motivated after the houses were given out, and Old Lu's question pointed the way forward. Rewarding land might be a good idea. For farmers, there's nothing that offers the same security as land and a home. It's their shelter and their livelihood. If such a simple incentive can boost their productivity, why not do it? He has the resources to build new houses for everyone, but he picked this reward system for more than just increasing output. People only truly appreciate the things they've earned with their own sweat. They work hard to prove their worth and gain recognition. Handouts are never as valuable as things you've earned. Those who work hard will be rewarded. It's a healthy cycle. If he just handed out houses, they'd be confused and wouldn't understand. The sense of accomplishment they get from earning the houses is more valuable than the houses themselves. Chapter 58 Improved Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey there. Don't sweat it, just jump. I got you. Wu Bai, reaching out to catch the kid who'd climbed onto the roof for kicks, handed him over to his parents, who were clearly freaking out. they bowed, thanking him profusely. Families with kids got their own rooms, but they only got one for the three of them, while everyone else got a room to themselves. Each room in the nice houses was over 1,000 square feet, plenty of space for a small family. The tailor shop was up and running, using cotton they'd bought from the market. They hadn't started handing out new clothes to everyone yet, but the 4 government officials all had fresh outfits. The neighborhood watch guys all wore clean, matching blue uniforms. Ji Lin had designed them to be simple and practical, nothing fancy, just plain clothes with armbands. The armbands were blue, held together by 2 symbols. Since the neighborhood watch started, they'd solved 100 problems in Linyang City. This kid was case number 100, just everyday stuff, like helping solve a theft. Turns out, the guy just dropped his stuff in the field. Wu Bai didn't get mad that he'd reported a theft, because he was so relieved to get his gold ring back, or settling a fight over food rations. A guy claimed he needed to take food home for his kids, but the cook wouldn't let him. Rules were, everyone had to pick up their own food. Wu Bai took the meal to the guy's place himself and found a sick kid at home. Then there was the young guy in love. He'd written a simple poem, using words he'd learned at the private school, and wanted Wu Bai to give it to the girl. Wu Bai told him no way was he delivering love letters. He should just talk to her. Love at first sight was rare. He had to put in the effort. As Chongshan's right-hand man, he'd taken over managing the neighborhood watch and really gotten into it. Wu Bai loved this kind of work. Seeing people smile after he helped them, it soothed the guilt from leading the pioneer team into disaster. This was his way of making amends, taking care of people. No need to pray to any gods. Following Ji Lin's orders, he learned to listen to people's problems and handle what he could. Stuff he couldn't handle, or things that were too complicated, he passed on to Ji Lin. A lot of people wanted some kind of entertainment. When the population was under 1,000, Chongshan could handle everything. Now, the neighborhood watch was the go-to. He looked at the steep mountains and foggy cypress trees every day, traveling between the salt fields and the main town. The ground wasn't right for a regular dirt road. They needed to use the high-quality paving material. Ji Lin had only thought about flat ground, not the shortest route, so they discovered some big swamps and puddles while paving. Chongshan was all over the place, figuring out the best way to lay the roads. His engineering skills weren't just for show. It was going to be a long road, over 3 miles. Every resource they saved would count. Big brother. I got you some sugarcane juice. That a little girl ran over, holding out a glass of juice. Wu Bai started to refuse, but the girl looked so sincere, he took it and drank it all. It wasn't the super strong, green sugarcane juice they sometimes got. This was watered down stuff, just a hint of sugarcane, a little sweeter than plain water, refreshing, but everyone got some, and every 100 cups only used up 1 cane. They didn't have any sugar in the territory, so this was their way of dealing with it. Everyone got a cup of this cool sugarcane water after work. Basically, they had a bucket of diluted juice and a bucket of water sitting out to cool down. The natural low temperature did the trick. Standing in the town of Jilin Station, looking at the empty houses, he felt a little emotional. Most folks had moved into their new places. These old houses would be torn down to make room. Maybe they could build a town square. Configuration completed, new building registered. When the Lord advances the completion level of a building to an extremely high level, he will obtain the building directly. He does not need to gradually study and complete the project to be recognized by the system. Guard station, neighborhood watch organization, reduces crime rate within a half-mile radius, increases over time, improves stability, multiple buildings stack, but the bonus from too many buildings will decrease. Unity is strength, help each other out. A new entry popped up, showing its civilization-specific details. Neighborhood watch organization, +10 stability, +10% mainstream ideological attraction, not yet active. We've realized we're not alone, and there's always someone to help when we need it. This organization of 21 people, including the leader, gave him 10 points of stability right off the bat. Attracting mainstream thought was a later game thing. It wouldn't kick in until the industrial age. He hadn't thought about that stuff at first. He just knew that having a police force would improve things, and he hadn't been in charge of building the territory before. Even if he couldn't see the numbers, he could feel that the stability was close to maxed out. Because production was booming, he had enough resources to build the engineering college after setting aside enough to build houses for everyone. Basically, he was rolling in resources. The private school, now running at full capacity, only needed 6 weeks to train a group of people with basic reading, writing, and arithmetic skills. He'd never imagined any of this. Improving people's lives had boosted their production so much that the territory was taking off ahead of schedule. Now that they had a solid foundation, he could think about taking in new people and building trading posts to connect with the outside world. This week, the plot should advance to the training battlefield, and inspiration is still accumulated. Chapter 59: The Post Station and the Arriving Priest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Post Station, 200 wood, 200 stone, 200 steel, 200 gold, 1 hour, provides access to other cities and starts immigration, from here, to there. Post stations don't just let lords travel outside their own lands, they also bring people from other city-states into your territory. Most are merchants or people seeking partnerships. Depending on your territory's characteristics, you might even attract some special talents. Even if your territory is monster-infested, these merchants and immigrants will mysteriously appear near the post station, ready to trade. They'll just pop up when you least expect it, like mushrooms after a rain. Buying from these merchants has its ups and downs. There's no quality control, so you risk getting ripped off. Lords get swindled by locals every day, but foreign merchants also offer resources way cheaper than the market. 1 unit of wheat flour might cost 1 gold from another lord, but you could snag it for as low as 0.3 gold from a caravan. It's a huge difference. Plus, you dodge the 15% system tax. The catch is, caravans are rare early on, and they don't carry much. Once your territory has a specialty, you can upgrade the post station into a full-blown commercial district or tourist hub. Some people can make a living just slinging wares in your market and in other city-states. This super-fast, unregulated market fuels rapid growth for everyone. Think of it as a decentralized production model, and the market slashes response times. All transactions are instant. Ji Lin put his post station near the coast. Once the dock was built, it was a bit far from the salt field, but closer to the ocean. When he owned the dock, the two would have a chain effect. You can spend resources to upgrade regular docks to trade docks. A lord in his past life figured out that even with system tweaks to personnel exchanges by sea, trade docks yielded 1.5 times the resources of land-based trade centers. In this era, without railways, the lifeblood of industry, coastal development is naturally faster. Ji Lin placed the post station, watching as the resources on the ground morphed into building structures. It was still mind-blowing, no matter how many times he saw it. No wonder his people saw it as a miracle. He scouted a prime spot for the engineering college on the opposite coast, forming an equilateral triangle with the salt field. The engineering college and salt field were the base angles, and the central town center was the vertex. The engineering college would take 20 days to build, terraforming the land as needed. He could even plop it right in the ocean. The system would just charge him extra materials. For reshaping the muddy coastline, the system tacked on 1,000 extra stones, bumping the engineering college's cost to a whopping 6,000. The deadline stayed the same. After the post station went up, the first arrival wasn't a resource-laden merchant, but, some people always beat the rush. Merchants chase profits, others seek something else. Greetings, Lord. I bring you the sincere regards of the goddess of life. A girl in a green gauze dress gave a slight bow, her long black hair framing her fair face, her dress swaying gently, humble and friendly. She exuded a welcoming aura. Ji Lin rested his chin on his hand, revealing nothing to the priestess of the goddess of life. These churches weren't evil, but they weren't exactly benevolent either. They were a double-edged sword for a lord's progress. The downside? Every church, without exception, had a history of power grabs. Maybe they didn't mean harm, but their presence gradually eroded a lord's authority, especially if the lord was a poor manager. It was easy to hand over responsibilities for convenience. After all, adopting someone else's system was easier than building one from scratch. From public services to the economy, from the army to the police, people would latch onto the church's ready-made solutions, no extra effort required. Someone would handle everything for you. The army wouldn't need training, the church would supply the troops. But the church couldn't work for free, so they'd want to build more commercial buildings on your land. Before many lords realized it, a third of their territory was church property. They were trapped in the sect schemes. Initially, the churches were generous, earning the Lord's favor, until the church wanted to preach, sure, but with their people. The buildings are yours, but we think our people can also learn your codes and spells, and our people can also learn your system. You can own buildings, but you can't have too many people stationed in the territory. Do it for nothing. If you have something to do, don't come. I'll change to another one. I don't have to rely on you, you have to get the bonus and grasp the management rights, so that it can be considered sound. The upside. Churches and temples offered great perks, completely free. Later, if you improved relations, you could get enhanced special troops and buildings at a discount to cover your weaknesses. You could quickly build up a fighting force without draining your manpower or research, allowing you to focus resources elsewhere, learn the magic of the gods, but never trust in gods. Every church's bonuses were tempting. Take the priestess of the goddess of life, now offering a church in his territory. Life Church. Increases plant growth rate within a 5 km radius by 5%, provides basic healing, increases territory habitability by 1 point, and is unique to the territory. Periodically sells unique resources and items of the pantheon, as well as services. May life last forever. A multifunctional temple, boosting plant growth, providing hospital-like functions, and slightly improving living conditions. It would also provide services, resources, and items specific to the Church of the Goddess of Life. Since she came knocking, he wouldn't refuse a freebie, even if it was sugar-coated. He wouldn't surrender his independence. Lord, I hope you'll consider my proposal. The priestess waited for Ji Lin to finish his thoughts until he nodded. Of course, you're welcome. But I have one condition: your church cannot engage in any public missionary activities within my territory. Thanks for the support. Almost at 7.3 points, I'll update tomorrow. Too late to finish this chapter today. By the way, the inspiration for the exercise battlefield actually comes from Escape from Taco, Hunting Showdown, and StarCraft Co-op. I've been collecting materials for those lately.